Hey,
How you doing?
Khalid.
How are
Good.
you?
We're
I
all
like the,
managing.
sorry?
I said we're all managing.
Yes, yep. I like the red toque. So, lots to talk about. Just Trudeau just got off, so I'll follow up with some of those questions later. But the big news last week or so, Peel Public Health. Do you think they failed us in the sense that about the outbreak in Canada Post? Because we didn't hear about this outbreak until people and the union came out and then put the spotlight on it. Then Peel Public Health came out and started talking about it. Do you think Peel Public Health let us down?
Well, I've advocated throughout the pandemic that there should be automatic disclosure of any outbreak. The standard right now in Ontario is if it's a risk to the public, then they inform the public. And so, if public health felt that it wasn't, public health makes the determination of whether it's a risk to the public. My personal preference would be rather than having that determination made, we simply have complete transparency.
I got to ask, I mean, how is this not a risk to the public when, you have, over 250 cases from January 1 to 18, when that came out, them going home, going grocery shopping. I would say that's quite the public
Yeah,
risk.
my personal opinion is there should be complete disclosure, whether there is two cases or 250. But in
Yeah.
terms of how public health makes the determination of when there's a public health risk, that's something you'd have to ask them.
Okay. We're talking. Let's talk about sick pay. I'm going to take it a different angle this time. I know that at the Canada Post facility, they actually do have sick pay, correct?
Yeah,
Right?
they're government employees, so they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yet they still had a massive outbreak. So I understand sick pay is important, but is it the, kind of end all for kind of
No,
COVID?
we've always said that it's one of many tools. More testing, isolation centers, paid sick days. Having healthcare capacity, the vaccine rollout. There are many tools to deal with this pandemic, and paid sick days are one of the important tools. I'll tell you why. 25% of the cases that we've had since August have involved people who went into work sick, and that was based on the research into the contact tracing done by Peel Public Health. But 25% of people going into work with COVID-19, that's an astounding number.
Yeah. What is the latest on sick pay? Any movement with the feds or the province?
Well, I think there continues to be an incredible amount of momentum across the country for paid sick days, and to make sure that that gap is addressed. We can't have people choosing whether to put food on the table for their family and pay their rent, or go to work sick. Mayor Crombie and myself wrote an op-ed just this week in the Toronto Star that spoke about why this is critical. And I hope, just like the other campaigns that we have waged in the last year in terms of COVID-19 supports, that at some point we're going to see some movement on this.
Good. And do you think there's just too many essential businesses that are open, that are allowed to open?
Yeah, you know what? I find it perplexing, some of the businesses that are open. When you have the big box stores that are open, but small businesses are closed. For me, that's one of the many examples that I just shake my head at. It doesn't seem logical.
Yeah. The numbers are going down. That's a good sign. This is the broken record question every week. Do you think that Brampton will be out of lockdown February 10th?
Well, I think it's a good thing that people are staying home, and we're seeing the case counts go down quite dramatically. Having said that, I think Dr. Williams has said at the provincial health table he'd like to see numbers below 1,000. I think today we were 1,800 in the province, and so I don't think you're going to see significant movement until it comes down further, based on what the provincial officials have said so far.
And I'm assuming if it's not lockdown, it'll be in the kind of the red zone next, right? Is that how it works?
Well, and those would be decisions made at the provincial health table. That wouldn't be a local decision.
Okay. Let's talk about big box stores. Has there been a blitz in Brampton or in Peel?
Yeah, so the Ministry of Labour has been doing blitzes across the province. Just last weekend, they did a blitz in York Region, and Peel, and Toronto. There were some infractions, not many. The reality is big box stores under the provincial regulations can have a lot of people in at one time. So
Sure.
none of them were over their capacity limits because the capacity limits are so generous. You know, the fines that were given out were very minor in nature. I think one of the fines given out was there wasn't enough physical distancing in the lunchroom. But you know, the fact that there wasn't many fines shows that you know, the regulations allow, you know, too much leeway for the big box stores, because when any of us go in there, it just looks too busy.
True. Do you go in there, and how often do people ask you questions when you get in there?
I get asked questions when I'm out, and you know, it's something that I don't mind. I think it's part of being in public service.
Cool. Any tickets internally from your bylaw officers over the last week? Any big doozies or any speaking?
No, you know what? There continues to be a wide level of compliance. Very few tickets, and you know, I just want to thank the residents of Brampton for doing their part and listening to public health and staying home.
Did you watch the Justin Trudeau presser?
I've got updates about the mandatory 3-day quarantine after arriving back from international travel. I think that's long overdue. I wish they had done that a year ago. The mandatory testing and the quarantine should be something that's required in this pandemic, and I think Canada would have been in a much better position if this had been announced a year ago or 3 months ago or 5 months ago. If you look at the variants that have gone into the country, it's because we have gaps in our control at the border.
Do you think the feds have done enough now? I mean, I think the other thing was they can't fly to the Caribbean until April 30th.
Well, personally, I don't see a rationale for any international travel right now.
Yeah.
Period.
Sure.
You know, and if they're going to allow it, you know, should there be a quarantine? Absolutely. But, you know, I don't even know why they need to have any international travel during a pandemic. In terms of how the feds do enough, you know, I'm going to say this very clearly: supply, supply, supply. We don't have enough vaccine supply. The fact that Ontario isn't receiving any this week, the fact that we've fallen to 20th on the list of countries getting vaccine supplies, we need Prime Minister Trudeau to get out there in an enthusiastic manner and be dogged and determined and get contracts that allow us to get vaccines. Right now, he's signed contracts for enough vaccines, but they're all backdated. And so, you know, we're essentially waiting until the spring when other countries are going to be almost completely done by that point.
What do you think of the, I don't know if you read the article in the kind of the British version of The Economist saying that Canada won't be fully vaccinated until mid-2022. Did you see that article?
I didn't see that article, but I just have to say it sounds like another red flag that the contracts that have been procured by the federal government are inadequate. You know, you look at these other countries where, you know, in some countries, 25% of the population has already been vaccinated. So, you know, we need a wake-up call in terms of those doing procurement in Ottawa to get Canada a better deal, to get Canada vaccines.
We get a lot of questions asked to inbrampton.com, and one of the questions that was asked this week was, we have a lot of people saying that buses are overcrowded in Brampton. Is there any way of getting more buses out to the busiest routes?
So we're using all our buses. We've increased capacity. You know, we're building transit as fast as we can for a growing population. But I would just add that how many people are allowed on the bus, it's a formula that Brampton Transit works with public health on. And so wearing masks is mandatory. We're the first transit systems to do that. And I think because the masks are mandatory, it's allowed us to continue to function transit. If it wasn't for the mandatory mask policy, I don't think we'd be able to have a transit system in operation.
Let's talk about the, I saw your Instagram post of the shiny electric bus. You want to talk about that quickly?
Yeah, so Brampton wants to be a green city, an environmental leader. And so we just arrived in Brampton. Some of the new electric buses will be the first city in Canada that is going to run these electric buses. And so it's really cool technology. It recharges as it picks up passengers. And so when the door goes down and people walk in, it charges for a few seconds, then it goes to the next stop and does the same thing. And so no gas, it's fuel efficient. It'll save dollars over fuel consumption. It's the way of the future, and it's going to diminish our emission contributions. And so, you know, Brampton is a country, or Brampton is a, not a country, Brampton is a city that's taking climate change seriously. And I used to say this is in partnership with the government of Canada. And so this is an example of where Canada and Brampton are being leaders on the environment, showing that we're a city and a country in Canada that understands our green obligations.
Let's talk about the isolation centers in Brampton. Has there been a lot of uptake, or do you know?
So they just opened last week, so
Okay.
we don't have the first report back. Probably won't have the first report back until after it's been in operation for a month. I think they're still working on making sure that the notifications go out for those that test positive.
And I know this is not your jurisdiction, but they always want me to ask you, just, maybe you can speculate, about school openings in Brampton. When do you think that'll happen?
Well, they've been announcing that other school boards are returning. So I hope the schools will return on February 10th. The fact that other school boards across the province have been invited back should be a sign that that's going to come soon in Toronto and Peel as well.
Okay. And have you seen any UK variants in Brampton?
I believe Dr. Lowe has said there is cases of the UK variant, but you'd have to ask him for the exact number.
Okay. And one last question here. One person asked, why is Ching Park closed for tobogganing?
Ching Park is not closed for tobogganing. You can do so at your own risk, but tobogganing, skating, all our winter amenities that the public is encouraged to enjoy. Get out, get some fresh air, get some exercise.
Perfect. Anything else you'd like to add, Mayor Brown?
No, just stay safe and look forward to talking to you again next week.
Perfect. All right. Have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you.